The sky began to shiver with a sound that no human had ever heard before, a deep vibration that rattled glass and shook the bones of everyone who stood in the open streets. Men, women, and children looked upward, their faces lit by a glow that grew brighter with every passing second. The clouds twisted into spirals of fire and light, tearing themselves apart as if the heavens were being ripped open. Then it came a blinding crack that split the sky wide, a fracture in reality itself through which poured a storm of flame and shadow. Giant vessels unlike anything Earth had ever seen descended with slow, relentless power, their shapes vast and jagged, covered in burning lines of energy that pulsed like living veins. People screamed as they scattered through the streets, cars collided in chaos, and alarms wailed like dying voices, the sound of panic rising in every corner of the city above. The tallest towers, one of the colossal ships, stopped its engines, hissing with a sound like 1,000 storms, its body casting a shadow so wide it drowned entire districts beneath it. Every eye on the ground was fixed on the alien craft that hovered with absolute control, its surface glimmering like black stone, carved by some ancient god. Then the silence came sudden and heavy, the roar of engines gone, the cries of panic fading into whispers as all attention turned upward, as if the very planet itself was holding its breath. A strange light formed on the belly of the ship, a circle that grew until it became a doorway of fire, and from that doorway a figure emerged. The galactic soldier descended slowly, carried by beams of burning light. His armor was not like metal, but like the bones of a fallen star, glowing with veins of blue and crimson. His height towered above men, and his every step cracked the earth beneath him when his feet touched the ground. The air around him rippled with energy, as if the world resisted his presence, yet could not deny it. Children clutched their mothers' arms, soldiers raised their rifles with trembling hands, and entire crowds pressed themselves against shattered buildings, their eyes wide with terror. The alien soldier stood unmoving, his head scanning the horizon, his gaze like twin suns burning through the souls of all who dared to look into them. When he finally spoke, his voice rolled across the ruins like thunder, a sound that carried not only through air but through the very bones of the people who heard it. The ground seemed to shake with his words, as if the planet itself feared to disobey. He declared that humans were weak, that their weapons were meaningless, that their time as rulers of Earth was over. He commanded them to kneel and submit to the will of the Galactic Empire that stretched beyond the stars. And for a long moment there was nothing but silence, the silence of a world caught between fear and fury. The towering galactic soldier stood upon the cracked pavement, his form casting a shadow that stretched like a curse across the broken city. His armor shimmered with waves of light, as if alive with energy pulsing through strange veins that glowed brighter with every beat. The people dared not move their eyes wide, their bodies frozen in a mixture of terror and disbelief. From his chest a hollow sound began to echo, deep and resonant, like the heartbeat of a dying world. The alien lifted his spear, a weapon forged of unknown material, its surface sharp as crystal, and alive with lightning arcs that spat against the air. The weapon hummed and sang, with the voice of death that made soldiers grip their rifles tighter, though their hands trembled. Under the weight of fear he raised the weapon to the sky, and a beam of light burst upward, ripping through the clouds and scattering them like smoke. The skies glowed with violent color, a storm of red and blue, lightning crackling across the heavens. Every eye turned upward in awe and dread as the soldier spoke again, his voice heavy as mountains rolling through the streets, carrying the weight of absolute authority. He commanded humanity to bow, he promised mercy to those who submitted and destruction to those who resisted. His words carved into the hearts of the listeners, as if branded with fear. Across the world screens flickered alive, satellites carried his voice to every nation, his message repeated in every tongue: surrender or face the wrath of the Galactic Empire. Entire governments froze, debating behind closed doors, their generals pacing, their presidents trembling, their advisors whispering fear into their ears. What could Earth do against a force that split the sky with a gesture? What could human armies achieve against a being who carried the power of suns in his hand? On the streets, people cried out in despair. Some fell to their knees, praying to gods they once ignored. Others shouted in anger, cursing the invader with words that meant little against the vast power before them. The city was alive with chaos, yet silence returned each time the alien shifted his stance, as if his very presence smothered hope. The galactic soldier stepped forward, the ground trembling beneath his feet, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. He spoke of conquest of worlds already fallen, of civilizations wiped away, their histories turned to ash, their monuments shattered, their names erased. He declared that Earth would be no different. He spoke of submission as the only path to survival, as the only gift they would be granted if they obeyed. The mother pulled her child close, hiding his face in her arms. A soldier whispered to himself a prayer of steel and courage, but his rifle shook. A group of men clenched their fists, anger rising to battle, fear, yet still they hesitated. The alien spread his arms wide as if embracing the world and promised that those who knelt would be spared the fire to come, his voice echoing through the ruins like prophecy, his eyes glowing brighter with cruel certainty. And, in that moment, humanity hung upon the edge of surrender. The silence that followed the alien proclamation stretched across the ruined city like a chain around the necks of every human heart. The people did not breathe, the soldiers did not move, even the flames burning in shattered buildings seemed to flicker more softly, as if the world itself listened in dread to the words of the galactic soldier. He stood in the center of the broken avenue, his armor glowing with rivers of energy that pulsed like the veins of a god, his weapon planted deep into the cracked stone, sending faint tremors through the ground. His voice had declared conquest, his words had carried finality, and still no human had found the strength to respond. In the halls of government across the planet, leaders whispered in desperation. Screens glowed with the image of the alien warrior, his figure towering, his presence consuming. Debates raged in chambers and bunkers. Should humanity surrender? Should it gamble survival against impossible defiance? Generals argued with ministers. Presidents argued with advisors. Voices clashed, yet no one dared to answer aloud the question that burned in every mind: could Earth resist at all? In the streets, the despair grew deeper. Civilians wept, their cries echoing through alleyways like a chorus of lost families huddled together, eyes fixed on the skies as if searching for salvation that would not come. The alien remained unshaken, his form like a monument carved into the end of human hope. Then the soldiers who had stood at the perimeter lowered their rifles, their fingers quivering against the triggers, sweat running down their brows. They had been trained to fight, they had been hardened for war, yet this was no enemy of flesh and bone. This was something born of stars, something beyond imagination, and though their hearts burned with duty, their bodies betrayed the fear that consumed them. One by one, their barrels tilted toward the ground. The alien warrior watched this surrender with cold satisfaction, his head tilting as if studying insects caught in his palm. His voice rose again, a declaration that humanity was already broken, that the empire of the stars would sweep across the earth as easily as the tide sweeps away sand on a beach. His words pressed down upon the people like a mountain, crushing every spark of defiance left within them. Across the ruined square, a young man fell to his knees, his voice cracking as he shouted for mercy, his call spreading weakness among the others who began to follow suit, their knees touching the dirt, their heads bowed in reluctant surrender. The alien raised his spear in triumph, his armor glowing brighter with every heartbeat, his victory seemingly already written. And yet not all bent, not all broke. In the face of the storm in the distance, a figure moved through the smoke and ruin, his boots striking the ground with steady rhythm, his form cutting through the haze like a blade through shadow. Unseen by most, unheard among the whispers of surrender, yet drawing closer with each step. The galactic soldier did not notice him, not yet, but soon the silence would break and Earth would find its voice in defiance. The silence lingered over the city, broken only by the sound of distant flames crackling through collapsed buildings. The alien warrior stood triumphant, his shadow stretched across trembling soldiers and kneeling civilians. His weapon pulsed with light as if it fed on the fear around him, and his eyes glowed brighter with the certainty of victory. He turned his gaze upon the crowd, his voice booming once more as he demanded obedience from every soul present. Yet, through the haze of smoke, a single figure stepped forward, his boots striking the broken pavement with steady rhythm, each step echoing like a drumbeat of defiance. His frame was smaller than the towering alien, yet his presence carried a weight that cut through despair. The crowd turned their eyes toward him, and whispers rippled like sparks. Across dry grass, who was this man who dared to rise when all others had fallen? The Green Beret moved with the calm of experience, his uniform torn and scorched from battles already fought, his face hardened by years of war, his eyes sharp and unyielding. He carried no fear in his stride, only resolve. His hand rested upon his rifle, but it was not the weapon that gave him strength. It was the fire that lived in his heart, a fire that no empire could extinguish. He stopped just yards from the galactic soldier, his boots planted firm on cracked asphalt, smoke curling around him like a cloak, his figure framed by the ruins of a broken world, his gaze locked with the alien giant. Above him the difference in size was vast, the difference in power immeasurable. Yet he did not waver, his shoulders squared, his chin raised, his stance steady as stone. A alien warrior studied him for a moment, his glowing eyes narrowing, his voice dripping with disdain. He mocked the lone human who dared approach. He questioned whether Earth had chosen this fragile soldier as its champion. He laughed, a sound that shook the air and cracked nearby windows like thunder rolling through the ruins. The crowd flinched under the sound, but the Green Beret stood uncannoned. Then he spoke, his voice sharp and steady, carrying across the square, his words clear as steel, cutting through the suffocating weight of alien power. He declared that humanity would not kneel, that Earth would never surrender, that no empire, no matter how vast, would ever rule over free men. He promised that invaders would find only death on this soil. His final words, delivered like a blade thrust into the heart of arrogance. He said, "We will end you, idiots say." Hush fell over the crowd, their eyes wide, their breath caught in their throats. The alien soldier froze, his laughter silenced. The air quivered with the weight of defiance. Reborn, the soldiers who had lowered their rifles began to lift them once more, their hands steadier, their eyes harder. Civilians who had knelt pressed their palms against the earth and pushed themselves back to their feet for the first time since the sky had cracked. Hope flickered in human hearts. The sight of one man standing unbowed against the impossible had broken the chains of fear. The galactic soldier no longer faced a broken people. He faced a rising fire, and it had only just begun. The moment hung heavy between the two figures, one vast and armored in the power of stars, the other a single man clad in worn fabric and steel. Yet in that stillness, the balance of fear shifted. The people no longer looked at the alien as an untouchable god, they looked at the Green Beret who stood before him with unflinching resolve. The galactic soldier tilted his head, his glowing eyes narrowing, as if studying an insect that refused to bow. His voice poured across the broken square, dripping with venom. He mocked the arrogance of a mortal who dared to stand against the empire of the stars. He called humanity fragile, weak, unworthy of the world. It claimed. His words rang like thunder, meant to crush the spirit of all who heard them. But the Green Beret did not flinch. He kept his rifle lowered, yet ready, his stance firm, his breathing steady. His eyes locked on the alien with the calm of a man who had walked through fire and returned unburned. His silence itself was defiance, a refusal to be moved by words or intimidation. His presence alone stirred the crowd, who found themselves standing taller, as if pulled upward by his strength. The alien slammed the butt of his spear against the ground, cracks splintering across the pavement as the shockwave rattled windows and knocked weaker men to their knees. Dust billowed into the air, flames flickered higher under the surge of power. The people gasped, some stumbled back, but the Green Beret remained unmoved, his boots gripping the ground. As if rooted to the very earth he swore to protect, he lifted his voice again, calm, steady, sharp as the edge of a blade. He told the alien that humanity had survived storms and wars, that it had bled across deserts, jungles, mountains, and oceans. He said that men had risen again and again, no matter the odds. He declared that no invader would ever break that spirit. He promised that the Empire of the Stars would learn what it meant to fight humans, who would rather die free than live in chains. Crowds stirred, their whispers swelling into murmurs, the murmurs swelling into cries. Soldiers lifted their rifles, civilians clenched their fists. The despair that had weighed on them cracked and crumbled, replaced by a fragile yet growing fire. The alien shifted his stance, his glowing eyes narrowing further, the laughter gone from his voice, replaced by the edge of anger. He spoke again, his words sharper, colder. He promised to crush the Green Beret with a single strike, to make his death an example. To all of Earth he lifted his spear, the energy within it pulsing brighter arcs of lightning, snapping against the air as the weapon prepared to unleash its fury. The Green Beret did not retreat. He took one step forward, his boots grinding against broken stone, his rifle raised now, aimed straight at the chest of the galactic warrior, his finger steady against the trigger, his voice carrying one last declaration that Earth was not his to claim, that Earth would never kneel, that the fight had only begun. And for the first time, the alien hesitated. The ground trembled as the galactic soldier lifted his weapon high above his head, the spear humming with the fury of sun's arcs of blue, fire snapping from its tip and tearing cracks into the earth around him. The people stumbled backward, shielding their eyes from the blinding glow. The air itself seemed to bend and ripple under the force of the energy gathering at the alien command. With a roar that echoed through the ruins, The alien struck the spear downward, releasing a blast of light that screamed across the square. The shockwave tore through shattered walls, ripped cars from the streets, and flung debris into the air like leaves caught in a storm. Screams filled the chaos as dust and flames swallowed the horizon, the power of a god, unleashed upon mortals. And yet through the storm, a single silhouette remained unmoved, the Green Beret, his boots rooted against the cracked pavement, his rifle raised, his body pushed back by the force yet unbroken, his stance steady as stone. When the dust began to clear, he still stood, his figure framed by swirling ash and fire, his eyes burning brighter than the glow of alien power. The alien warrior tilted his head, the faintest flicker of surprise glimmering across the glow of his eyes. No mortal had ever withstood the fury of his strike, no world had ever offered resistance. His voice rumbled with growing anger. He declared the human foolish to think Defiance could alter fate. He promised that the next blow would tear not only the soldier apart but the earth beneath him. The Green Beret answered not with words but with fire. His rifle barked, flames leaping from the barrel as bullets cut through the smoke, streaking straight toward the alien chest. The crowd gasped as the shots rang out, each round a cry of defiance, echoing louder than any speech. Bullets struck the armor of the galactic soldier, sparks scattering across the air. The alien staggered half a step, not wounded but slowed. The rifle sang again and again, the rhythm of war hammering into the silence. The alien lifted his arm to shield himself, energy flaring as he deflected the storm of steel. Each shot a reminder that humanity would not bow. With a furious roar, the alien swung his spear in a wide arc, the weapon slicing through air with the weight of a hurricane. The Green Beret dove aside, rolling across cracked stone shards of pavement, exploding where he had once stood. He rose swiftly, his rifle steady, his breath calm, as if this was only another battlefield, only another war, though unlike any he had ever fought before. The clash continued, lightning against steel, alien power against human grit, each strike shaking the city, each bullet carving defiance into the ruins. The crowd that had once wept now shouted, voices rising above the storm. Soldiers reloading, civilians crying out with fists raised, the spark of resistance ignited by one man now spreading like wildfire. And though the alien still towered unbroken, though his armor still glowed with the fire of the stars, a shadow of doubt began to creep into his stance. For the first time he faced not a world already conquered but a world ready to fight. The square shook with the echo of battle smoke, coiling upward into a bruised sky. The alien warrior loomed with his spear, glowing brighter, his rage building with every failed strike. Yet below him, the lone human stood unwavering, the Green Beret, his rifle firm in his hands, his breath steady, his eyes locked on the giant with unbreakable fire. The crowd that had once cowered now stirred with restless energy. Soldiers who had lowered their rifles found strength in the sight of the beret unbowed, their hands clenched tighter around their weapons, their eyes burning with a courage they thought had vanished. Civilians who had fallen to their knees began to rise, their fists clenched, their voices no longer trembling but sharp with anger. They watched one man defy the impossible, and remembered that they too were human, and humans did not kneel. The alien raised his weapon once more, lightning sparking violently across the ruined street. But before he could strike again, the Green Beret lifted, his voice cutting through the chaos, his words not shouted in desperation but carried with conviction. He told the soldiers to hold the line. He told the people that fear was the weapon of the invader, and that courage was the answer. He declared that Earth belonged to those who bled for it, not those who sought to steal it from the stars. His voice spread like fire through dry grass, sparking life into every heart. Soldiers lifted their rifles in unison, their barrels flashing as a storm of bullets cut across the square. Civilians shouted their cries, rising into a thunderous chorus, the sound of unity drowning the alien voice that had once dominated the air. Resistance had been born, not through strategy or orders, but through the courage of one man who refused to bend. The alien warrior staggered as the hail of fire struck his armor, sparks and energy flaring with each impact. Though he stood unbroken, his movements grew heavier, slower. His spear spun in arcs of fury, deflecting shots, his voice roaring promises of annihilation. Yet his certainty was shaken. His empire had never seen such defiance from prey that should have been broken before the first blot. The Green Beret pressed forward, weaving between cover, his rifle blazing with relentless fire, his mind sharpened by years of combat, his body driven not by survival alone but by the weight of every life that now looked to him. His boots struck the earth with the rhythm of defiance, each step a promise that he would never fall until the enemy was broken. The people shouted louder, the square alive with voices that refused to die, the air charged not only with lightning but with human fury. The alien loomed above them, his form towering, yet for the first time his shadow seemed smaller, diminished, not by weapons but by the will of those who no longer feared him. And in that moment Earth was no longer silent. Earth was alive with the roar of defiance, and the Green Beret stood at its heart, unshaken, unbroken, unstoppable. The battle surged with a new rhythm, the air alive with fire and fury. Bullets streaked through smoke grenades, thundered across the broken streets, and shouts of defiance rolled like waves through the city. The galactic soldier stood in the center of the storm, his armor sparking with impacts, his glowing eyes burning with rage, yet his certainty of victory faltered for the first time in countless conquests. The Green Beret pressed forward, his rifle barking with precision, every shot aimed with the calm of a man who had lived through countless wars. His boots carried him through rubble, his body moved with instinct honed by years of training, his mind sharpened by the weight of what was at stake. He was no longer a soldier fighting for survival, he was the embodiment of resistance, fighting for a world that refused to kneel around him. The soldiers rallied, their weapons once heavy with fear, now alive with fire. They shouted to one another, voices hard with determination, their formation tightening as if the presence of one man had reawakened their discipline. They advanced step by step, their volleys of gunfire lighting the ruins. Civilians too joined the storm, some hurling stones, others seizing abandoned weapons, all of them refusing to remain silent, all of them refusing to bow. The alien roared, a sound like thunder shattering mountains. His spear whirled arcs of lightning ripping through the ground, tearing craters into streets. His strikes shook buildings to their foundations. Yet with each furious swing, the humans scattered, regrouped, and returned fire, their spirit refusing to break their defiance, refusing to die. The Green Beret shouted commands, his voice clear through the chaos. He directed fire, he pulled men to cover, he pointed civilians toward safety. His leadership carved order from the storm. Each word carried not only authority but unshakable resolve, and the people followed him as if his defiance itself was a shield. Against fear, the alien struck again, unleashing a wave of energy that split the ground, sending fire and debris into the air. But instead of cowering, the humans roared louder, their shots hammering into his armor, forcing him to brace, forcing him to acknowledge that these were no insects to be crushed. They were warriors, they were survivors. Step by step, humanity pressed closer, bullets, sparks, and flames surrounding the giant until even his towering form seemed less divine, more vulnerable. The Green Beret leaped from cover, his rifle blazing. As he advanced through the dust, his figure cutting through the storm like a blade, his eyes fixed on the alien, his will unyielding. The people saw him, and their voices rose into a thunderous cry, the sound of a world united in defiance, the sound of courage rising from despair. For the first time, the alien realized he was not fighting a single soldier, he was fighting the spirit of an entire planet. And in that realization, a shadow of doubt crept into his stance. The city burned with light and fury, the sky torn by fire, the streets alive with the sound of rifles and the cries of men and women who refused to kneel. The galactic soldier stood at the center, his armor glowing brighter, his spear humming with power. Yet around him the tide had shifted. No longer was he the executioner of a conquered people, now he was the enemy of a world. Awakened, the Green Beret advanced through smoke, his body weary, his uniform torn, his face streaked with dust and blood, but his eyes burned with an unbroken fire. His rifle sang with each shot, cutting into the alien armor, sparks bursting like stars across the ruins. He moved with the certainty of a man who knew he carried the weight of humanity upon his shoulders. The alien bellowed, his rage filling the air, his spear slammed into the ground, sending shockwaves through shattered stone cracks, splitting outward like veins of fire. Yet the soldiers closed ranks, holding their ground, their rifles answering his fury. With storm after storm of steel, civilians joined their voices, shouting curses and defiance, every cry a reminder that fear had been broken and would never return. The Green Beret leaped from cover, rolling across rubble as the alien struck again, the spear barely missing his body and carving a crater where he once stood. He rose swiftly, his rifle aimed high, his voice a roar that carried across the battlefield. He declared that humanity would never fall, that invaders would learn death before Submission. His words were not only for the alien, they were for the world itself, and the world answered with its voice, with a cry that shook the ruins. The people surged forward, throwing everything they had into the fight: stones, metal shards, even bare fists, their courage overwhelming their weakness, their defiance burning hotter than the flames that devoured the streets. The alien staggered as the storm pressed closer, his spear spinning to keep them back, his armor cracking under the relentless assault. The Green Beret seized the moment. He sprinted forward, weaving through debris, his rifle firing until the last round was spent. Then, with a cry, he leaped onto a broken slab of stone, rising to meet the towering figure, his eyes locked on the glowing chest of the alien warrior. He hurled himself into the strike, pressing his last grenade against the armor, and pushing off with every ounce of strength left in him. The explosion roared like the voice of the earth itself, fire engulfing the square. The alien reeled, his armor shattered, his weapon faltering, his glow flickering. Like a dying star, the giant staggered, his roar turning to a howl, not of triumph, but of pain. The people watched as he stumbled, collapsing to one knee, his power broken, his certainty destroyed. And there, in the smoke, the Green Beret stood, his body scarred, his breath heavy, but his stance unbroken. He raised his rifle high, though it carried no more rounds, and the crowd erupted, their voices shaking the sky. Earth was alive, Earth had spoken, Earth would never kneel. The battle was not over, the Empire still waited in the stars, but on that day humanity had declared its answer, and the first line of victory had been written in fire and blood.